Hi, PerspectiveWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Wednesday, February 19th. Colder today in the Mid-Atlantic region, some 10 degrees colder than it was yesterday afternoon. We were mild on Tuesday, above normal for this time of the year, but again, colder today, and it'll turn even colder on Thursday and Friday. Highs for the next 2 days, Thursday and Friday, look like they'll generally be confined to the 30s in D.C., Philadelphia, New York City. There is a lot of moisture sitting around, meandering around the southern U.S., and it looks like a batch of that moisture will head to the northeast on Thursday, resulting most likely in a decent snowfall for places like southeastern Virginia, North Carolina, all the way down to the upstate of South Carolina. It looks like it stays just to the south and east of the D.C. metro region. It's still a close call. We'll have to monitor it over the next 24 hours or so, but as has been the case for much of the winter season, looks like the D.C., Philadelphia, New York City corridor will escape any threat of serious snowfall on Thursday. But again, it looks like a decent snowfall, maybe on the order of 3 to 6 inches of snow down across the Carolinas, maybe all the way up to southeastern Virginia. Before we get to the short-term forecast situation, let's take a look at some of these teleconnection indices that we've been monitoring over the last several days to see there's some signs of a pattern change that could allow for more sustained cold in the eastern U.S., and that in turn gives us a little better chance of some snowfall in the I-95 corridor region. The first index is the North Atlantic Oscillation. This reflects what is going on in terms of the pressure pattern over the North Atlantic, and snow lovers know that for this time of the year, the best scenario is to have NAO in negative territory for a sustained period of time. That again tends to increase the chances for sustained cold, which in turn increases the chances for snow in the eastern U.S. Well, the forecasts definitely have a drop for the NAO, at least to neutral. Let's do the neutral line right here, perhaps even into negative territory over the next week to 2 weeks or so. So that again is a somewhat of a bullish sign for more sustained cold in the eastern U.S., and that in turn increases the chances for snow. Now we'll see if this is just a temporary change to the NAO pressure pattern situation over the North Atlantic, or if it's a longer-term change in the overall weather pattern. Well, one other teleconnection index we've been looking at over the past several days is called the Eastern Pacific Oscillation, the EPO, and it dictates what's going on. It kind of gives us an indication as to what's going on with respect to the pressure pattern over the North Pacific. When the EPO is positive, there tends to be a trough of low pressure over Alaska and high pressure to the south of there, a counterclockwise flow of air around the low over Alaska, and the clockwise flow of air over the high pressure over the North Pacific generally forms a nice west to east jet stream that flows from the North Pacific into the western part of Canada. Generally a mild Pacific air, and it also helps to bottle the cold air that's been sitting over Alaska for much of the winter season. Certainly signs for a change in the EPO from positive to negative. This is the forecast map going forward, and here's a kind of a more significant look to a change in the EPO as it drops from positive into negative territory. That could result in more sustained cold for the central and eastern U.S., a better chance for the cold to come from northwest Canada all the way into the central and eastern U.S. as we progress through let's say the last week of February, next week, into at least the early part of March. So we'll continue to monitor these teleconnection indices, the NAO and the EPO, for example, to see if this potential pattern change really comes true here. We've had some false alarms over the past several weeks, and we'll see if this trend continues over the next several days. And one final set of charts before we get to the short-term situation. This is from the ensemble run of the GFS at 6E last night. We're looking at average 850 millibar temperature anomalies over a given 5-day period. This happens to be the current 5-day period, seen up here as days 1 to 5. And we'll kind of go forward here for a couple of weeks. We'll see what I'm talking about, the possibility of more sustained cold here. We've had multiple cold air outbreaks in the eastern U.S. over the past several weeks, but they generally last for a day or two. Then the next precipitation event arrives and it turns mild or just ahead of that. For example, last weekend we had very cold conditions, well below normal, Friday and Saturday in the Mid-Atlantic region. Then it started to modify noticeably on Sunday, and by Monday and Tuesday we had some shower activity, rain shower activity again, not sustained cold. Now, going forward here with the NAO dropping at least to neutral territory, maybe even into negative territory, and with the potential change to the EPO, a little better chance for sustained cold. Of course, overall normals are increasing now that we're going to the latter part of the winter season. High temperatures normally this time of the year in Philadelphia, for example, about 44 degrees or so. So you really need 10 to 15 degree below normal type of air mass to support snow this time of the year. And that gets harder and harder as you get into the month of March. Again, the current 5-day situation, pretty sustained cold here. But then as we go forward here, you notice by the time we get to days 3 to 7, which is February 21st to the 26th, already showing above normal temperatures here, at least at the 850 millibar level. So again, for the next several days, continues the pattern of cold, not for too many days, and then warmer than normal following that. But as we progress farther into the beginnings of March, the end of February, basically next week to the following week, this is days 7 to 11. Notice this wide area, colder than normal conditions, already into the Mid-Atlantic region. This is days 7 to 11. We just press forward here. Notice it sticks around this time. This is now going out all the way to the end of the forecast here, days 12 to 16. So it looks like a little bit more of a chance for sustained cold in the central and eastern U.S. as we evolve from late February into the beginning part of March. And again, that's kind of supported by those teleconnection indices, which show the NAO dropping perhaps to neutral or even negative territory, and the EPO dropping from positive to negative. So we'll continue to monitor this potential pattern change over the next several days. Well, now let's finally take a look at the short-term weather scenario, and we've been hoping for the combination of cold and moisture if you are a snow lover in the I-95 corridor region from D.C. to Philadelphia to New York City. It just hasn't happened much this year, but it looks like it's going to happen on Thursday and into Thursday night in the area of Southern Virginia, North Carolina, and maybe the upstate of South Carolina. But again, it looks like it may escape. The snow threat may slide off to the south and east of D.C. Close call. We'll continue to monitor, but let's go through the details right now. Colder air, again, moving into the Mid-Atlantic region, certainly a drop of 10 degrees or so from temperatures yesterday afternoon to this afternoon, and there'll be kind of a secondary push of that cold air. And many of you have been following Perspective Weather over the years and know that I first like to look for a cold high whenever we're dealing with a potential threat of snow in the I-95 corridor region. Well, we have that setting up here, but the moisture is going to stay south, it looks like, southeast of that I-95 corridor region from D.C. to New York City. This is good news for snow lovers in Southern Virginia and North Carolina, of all places, and maybe all the way down to the upstate of South Carolina. Here we are starting the day on Thursday, a cold air mass anchored by strong cold high pressure over the northern plains, and it is a cold day all the way down to the Carolinas. And here we go, the GFS model from last night's 0Z run has low pressure moving off the Carolina coastline. Snow, and again, there could be maybe 3 to as much as 6 inches of snow in parts of the Carolinas on Thursday into Thursday night, and that snow threat, for accumulating snow threat, could extend all the way into, let's say, southeastern Virginia. It looks like it stays just to the south and east of D.C. and Delmarva Peninsula. It's still too close to write that off completely, and again, we'll monitor that over the next 24 hours or so. But here we are by late tomorrow night. That low pressure stays to the south and east of D.C. and Philly and New York City and continues to move off the coast. But here we go, eastern North Carolina all the way into interior South Carolina, still the threat of snow tomorrow night going into early Friday morning. And again, there could be as much as maybe 6 inches of snow in parts of the Carolinas out of this system. That high pressure slides to the east, and Thursday and Friday will indeed be cold days, well below normal for this time of the year. This is now the forecast map going all the way into Saturday morning. So again, we have colder conditions today and even colder on Thursday and Friday. High temperatures on Thursday and Friday confined to the 30s for the most part. DC, Philadelphia, New York City, and we start off the weekend on a cold note. But again, the snow threat looks primarily focused for Southern Virginia, North Carolina, upstate South Carolina for Thursday and Thursday night, but we'll continue to monitor the situation over the next 24 hours or so. That's it for now. For PerspectiveWeather.com, I'm meteorologist Paul Orion.